This is Christian Book Blurb, brought to you by author and songwriter Matt McChlery. Get a behind-the-scenes glimpse into the lives of some of your favourite Christian authors, hear about their books and faith. Also, why not check out my website, mattmcclery.com. Well, hello and welcome to another edition of the Christian Book Blurb Show, where we like to encourage you in your discipleship one book at a time as we meet some amazing Christian authors and learn about their books, their lives, and their faith. I'm your host, Matt McChlery. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, on today's show, I'm going to be talking about fasting with Bishop Matthew Porter, who has written a book called The Art of Fasting. So, Matthew, fasting is quite a popular buzzword these days. Celebrities fast. We hear about it a lot on the telly and in magazines and things. But that's more of a way of dieting or trying to improve wellness or something like that. But I expect spiritual fasting is a little bit different to that notion of fasting. So in your book, The Art of Fasting, you give a helpful definition of what fasting is all about. So could you enlighten us?
Sure, Matt. First of all, thank you for inviting me on. It's good to be here. And yes, I do define fasting in a certain way because I think it helps us to know what we're talking about. So I define fasting as choosing not to eat food. That's the main way, the biblical way of fasting. There is a bit more to it than that, but that's the main way. I like that definition because it reminds us it is primarily about food. And when we see fasting in the Bible, it's mainly about food. There are other types of fasts which are useful, and particularly for those who, for all sorts of reasons, can't fast food. And maybe we'll talk about that a bit later. But there are some people, perhaps for health reasons, for their dietary reasons, age reasons, or perhaps they've got some kind of eating disorder that they shouldn't be fasting food. But for most people, we can. So it's about food. It's about not eating. As simple as that. It's about saying, my body wants me to eat, but I'm not going to. And it's about choosing that. So it's not, we're not eating because we're ill, or we're not eating because we're, in prison or something and no one's feeding us. It's normally a deliberate choice. So that's my definition of fasting that really helps us, I think, as we go ahead.
I liked when you said fast food, and my mind immediately went to a burger and fries. But
Can I just add one more thing, just to say? It's, there's lots of books, as you mentioned, on fasting, secular books on fasting. And I don't want to rule those out as not being helpful. They have some benefits. And I say in the book that actually there are some health benefits of just not eating food. But Christian fasting goes beyond that. It's a much more prayerful discipline. And, it'd be great to talk about that as we go ahead.
Yeah, we'll dig down into that in just a minute. But I just want to go sideways a little bit, if I may, to start with, because as you said, there are other types of fasting. And so, you say fasting of food, not eating food on purpose. So what about, because in some sort of church circles, you hear, oh, well, I'll just fast not watching as much TV as I normally do, or I'll fast social media for Lent, or that kind of thing. Is that still fasting or not, or how does that work or fit in?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think my reply to that would be it's fasting like in that we're giving up some things, and that's quite useful because we're called to live a disciplined life as followers of Jesus. One of the definitions of follower of Jesus is a disciple, and a disciple is a disciplined person. And so as part of our everyday discipleship, we should be careful about what we do and don't do. There may be times when we particularly say, well, I'm not going to do this, or I am going to do this. John Mark Comer would say that's just maturity. That's just being a follower of Jesus. So those things can have some benefits. I don't want to rule them out, but then you don't get the same benefits of Christian fasting. There's something about food making our body hungry that really helps with fasting. You don't get that from fasting social media, although sometimes it is good to fast social media.
So in your book, you talk about in the first chapter about food and why food and fasting food is actually important. So I could just tell the listeners all about it now, but it's your book. So can you just tell us a little bit about why food is so central to this idea of Christian fasting.
Yeah. So we're made to eat food, aren't we? That's how we grow. That's how we live. If we don't have food for very long, we do die eventually. I mean, particularly water, but food. So food is really important to us, and there's nothing wrong with eating food. The Bible speaks very positively about eating food. But fasting is about saying, despite this natural urge to eat food, I'm going to choose for a time or for a season not to eat food. Now, that is kind of counterintuitive, because I don't know about you, but I get to a certain point in the day when my body says, feed me now, please. And that's a very natural thing. Now, when you fast, you're saying, no, I'm not going to do that. So you're starting to take control of your body's natural urges. And that can be a really good thing. We learn lots of other disciplines on the back of that. We learn self-control on the back of that, because if we can learn to control our appetite, we can learn to control other things. That's why many of the church fathers talked about fasting being like a gateway discipline. If you can get this one, then it opens up all sorts of other disciplines. But perhaps more importantly, there's something very basic about fasting in that we get hungry. When we don't eat, our body says, feed me, please. We say no, and we feel those hunger pangs. So, for instance, I've not had lunch today yet on this podcast. I'm sure I could survive for longer, but I can feel just a little bit of hunger pangs in my body. Now, that's interesting. Now, as the day goes on, if I don't eat, I'll feel that more. What do I do with that? In fasting, we take those hunger pangs and we say, God, I'm hungry, but now let me turn that into prayer. I want to hunger for you. I want to hunger for your kingdom. I want to turn these things into prayer. So actually, our body becomes part of our praying. And that can be a very beautiful, holistic thing, very joined up thing, a physical and spiritual thing coming together. And that's the power of fasting that you don't get, say, when you fast social media.
Really good. Thank you. So you've started to touch on why fasting is important. So how can it help improve or strengthen our relationship with Jesus? Is it a case of holding God sort of ransom, sort of saying, I'm not going to eat until you answer my prayer, or is it a way of kind of trying to say, I'll just pray a normal prayer, but because I'm fasting now, my prayers are more powerful? Or how does that work?
Well, we don't know fully that, because it's not 100% described in the scriptures, but it seems there's something about when we fast and pray, things happen. Now, of course, when we pray, as followers of Jesus, we believe things happen. It's not a mechanical process. It's not like a slot machine. You put a coin in and out comes what you pray for. Prayer's not like that. There's a bit of a mystery to prayer. But we know that when we pray, things happen. It seems like when we pray with fasting, there's something, it's like an added impetus. It's like it kind of catalyzes our prayers in some form or some way. We can't prove that, because it's just possible this thing might have happened without us praying. And it's, we can't always see it straight away. There's something about fasting with prayer, making it a prayerful discipline, that over the centuries people have found to be so helpful. There's lots of testimony about that. It seems we see that too in the scriptures. So people would often fast for various reasons. Sometimes they did it just part of their everyday discipline. So, for instance, we hear of Anna in the Bible. It says she spent her time in the temple praying and fasting. It seemed like fasting was just part of her everyday walk with God. But there were other times in the Bible when people fasted for certain things. Perhaps they're going on a difficult journey. They're praying for protection. They're praying for guidance. They're choosing leaders. They're asking for God to help them with that. They've got the enemies coming to fight them. They're praying for God's help, for God's intervention. So there is something about intent and saying, yes, God, please see my fasting, but it's not twisting God's arm any more than praying is twisting God's arm. It's saying we're serious about this, and we're making our body hungry, so we hunger for God and for his purposes and plans.
So fasting is more for us than it is for God?
Well, yes and no. I mean, yes, in the same way that prayer is for us and more for us than for God, but it is for God. We're asking God to see what we're doing, but it's not like we want him to love us anymore. he can't love us any more or any less. He's Almighty God. But it's showing, Lord, we're serious about this, and I'm calling out to you, I'm crying out to you, so much so I'm making my body hungry. That's what it's about.
Really good. Do you think churches today have lost the art of fasting, instead emphasize a lot more on the other way, on feasting?
Well, certainly in the West, that seems to be the case. So if you travel abroad to the African churches and Asian churches, and in South America, there's much more emphasis on prayer and fasting there. In the West, a bit less so, although it seems to be we're recovering it a bit more. There seems to be renewed interest. I mean, my book's part of that. But others are writing on fasting and reflecting on fasting. So there's a growing interest, but you're right. In the West, I think we have neglected this discipline. We've seen it as a discipline for, I don't know, very sincere believers or super spiritual believers or mature believers. It seems Jesus didn't think so.
Those kind of old monks back in the day who sort of said, only eat water and bread crusts and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's something that only really ascetic people did. Jesus didn't think so. So the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, 6, 7, Jesus' basic discipleship teaching, which I think now most Bible teachers would say is for all Christians. Jesus says, when you give, when you pray, when you fast. Not if you give, if you pray. He seems that we will do these things. It's what we do as followers of Jesus. And he adds in there, if you fast. That's interesting. Most of us wouldn't put it in there as discipleship 101, but Jesus does. So we need to learn from that.
Yeah, no, that's good. So is there anything wrong with feasting then? Or is it, do we need both?
No, nothing wrong with feasting. Jesus seemed to enjoy, didn't he, having a good feast. But at times he did fast as well. It's the same for us. And we see that in the early church. So in one sense, the Christian life is this life of feasting and fasting. It's both those things. And sometimes, for instance, in the church I led before, the Belfry in York, we would often end a time of fasting with feasting. We'd say, let's come together, let's end our fast by having a time of prayer, and then we'll eat together. And that could be a lovely thing on the back of that, to break your fast together. But something I say in the book that perhaps I think I didn't emphasize enough when I was a local church pastor, local church vicar, was that fasting can be feasting like. And by that I mean this, is when we get hungry and we pray and we read the scriptures and we call out to God, sometimes we can find that nourishment comes to us through the Spirit of Jesus in a lovely way. And it can be a beautiful thing. Yes, our body's hungry, but spiritually we can find often we can grow, or we can feel we're enlightened, or things particularly happen to us. So much so that some people really enjoy fasting. They find that somehow they come out, like their vision for the kingdom, their heart for God has been expanded. That's not true for everybody. For some people, it's just jolly hard work. But some do find that, and there's something lovely about that. We can feast on Christ as we fast.
That's beautiful. Now, back to the book, The Art of Fasting. You split it up into 5 sections: mouth, heart, hands, knees, and feet. We're not going to explore all of those. Obviously, people need to get a copy of the book. But so what does fasting do to our hearts, and why is this important?
Yeah, well, I split it up into those 5 sections because obviously they relate to different parts of the body. I've been really helped when I've been thinking about fasting by the theologian Scott McKnight, who calls fasting body prayer. So this idea of we're making our body hungry. So it's this very holistic thing that I talked about. So we're joining in our bodies and our spirits. We're praying together. So that's why I use these different parts of the body to help us think through what fasting does. What the heart is about is about really seeing fasting as a way of asking God to change our hearts, to make us more godly, to make us more holy. And what many people find, and I found this myself, that often when I fast, it can be a very exposing thing. So as I fast, often I see things in my life, or I look back on things that have happened, and I see things that I need to put right with God. So many people are seeing fasting as a holiness tool. As they fast, so they repent. They ask God to forgive them. They ask God to cleanse them and make them new. The Orthodox Church is very big on this, and I mentioned this in the book. It's at the heart of the Orthodox tradition that if you really want to become more holy, then spend some time fasting. And that's been my experience over the years. Occasionally, when I feel like there's something in my life that is not good, maybe a pattern that I feel needs to break, I might say, okay, God, I need to really deal with this. Will you help me? And I'll set aside some time to pray and fast and really pray into that. And that can be a really helpful thing.
Just something you said there reminded me another thing of what I really appreciate about your book. You mentioned sort of something from the Orthodox Church, and actually your book does that. It kind of picks up sort of the best bits from all sorts of different church traditions, sort of Orthodoxy, sort of Church of England, but also Methodism and charismatic movement and all that kind of, and sort of saying, okay, these different strands of the church kind of emphasize different bits of fasting. But what if we took them and put them all together? Yeah, that was
exactly.
Great. I really enjoyed
that's something a bit novel about the book. I don't know any other book that's quite done that. Now, of course, for instance, the Orthodox Church would emphasise lots of different aspects of fasting, but they're particularly big on the holiness side of it. So what I've tried to say is which part of the church is particularly good at emphasising this. So I have a chapter on intercession. That's about getting on your knees, and it seems to me that John Wesley and the Methodist movement were big on that. He taught it was very important to pray out to God intercession and to ask God, particularly for breakthrough when things were stuck or you needed to see some real advancement of the kingdom, or perhaps people who felt like they were on the edge of faith but just couldn't make a commitment or something like that. He would urge church leaders to pray with fasting and get on their knees and pray for breakthrough. So that kind of Wesleyan Methodist movement were really big on the intercessory side of fasting.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good. I enjoyed that in the book. So people have been listening to this chat that we've been having, kind of theoretical in some respects. So let's get practical. So practically then, how can we fast? We're talking about all this sort of theoretical stuff. So we might have listeners thinking, all right, well, I haven't done this in ages, or I've never done it before. How do I do it? So in chapter 3, you have all sorts of different practical tips. So where do we start? How can we begin? If we've never fasted before, where do we begin?
Yeah. So what I normally teach people when I speak about this is to say, do something. To make a start. So start with perhaps one meal. Don't try and do 5 days or something silly. Start with one meal. So you might, for instance, decide next Thursday I'm going to fast lunch. I'm going to have my breakfast and I'm not going to eat till the evening meal. And put that in your diary. Make some space if you can, so that when you would be eating lunch, you particularly have time for prayer. That would be good. And then take that time to pray and fast. And you might want to have a focus, something you want to fast about. You don't have to, but you could. You might want to pray for some kind of breakthrough in some area. You might want to pray for a particular person or situation and fast. But don't stop there. So fasting is supposed to make us more prayerful in general. So what I would say, for instance, if you're then not going to eat for the rest of the afternoon, you might be busy in the day, you might be at work or in some meetings, but you'll feel as the day goes on, you've become even more hungry. So as you feel that, throw off little prayers to God. Okay, God, I'm feeling hungry now. It's 4:00 and I'm not eating since breakfast. But that thing I prayed about lunchtime, I bring it to you again right now. And just open a little prayer. And I'm feeling hungry. So now I want to hunger for you and for your kingdom to come. So listen to your body. And learn to use your body to help yourself to pray. Start with one meal. And you may want to even have a fasting buddy and say, let's do this together. Let's learn together. Nothing wrong with that. When Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, don't show off your fasting, by that he doesn't mean say don't tell anyone you're fasting. He just means don't make a big thing of it. Don't try to make yourself look super spiritual. If my wife asks me, are you fasting today? I'm not going to lie to her. if I am, I say yes. But what I mustn't do is try and say, yeah, look how spiritual I am. That's missing the whole point of fasting. So sometimes it's good to have a buddy. Sometimes my wife and I will fast for a particular person or place or situation on the same day. Some people like to fast from sunset to sunset. So they'll eat a meal, their evening meal, and they won't fast. They won't eat again till the following evening. But I wouldn't start there. Start with one meal, perhaps lunchtime, and drink water. Get lots of fluid into your body, and be aware sometimes too. If you're going to fast, just be savvy about it. If you're going to, for instance, stop drinking coffee and you drink a lot of coffee, you might get some headaches. Be aware of that. You may want to perhaps drink a bit less coffee if you can see a fasting day coming up. If you're going to cut out coffee, for instance. Learn to listen to your body and turn it into prayer.
Really, really great advice. Thank you. Now, there's a quote that you've written in your book, which I love. You say, fasting is not just to make us more healthy and more holy. It's meant to change the world. Yeah. Can you just unpack that a bit for us?
Yeah, and I think this links to the last chapter, which is about feet. And that's really about walking out in mission with the shoes of the gospel, showing the love of Christ in word and action. And the Pentecostal and charismatic church is often very good at doing that, and we've got a lot to learn from them about this. So sometimes we can think that prayer and fasting is just about me and my relationship with God. It's partly about that, but if that's all it is, that's quite introspective in some ways. We're called to be followers of Jesus who bring his transforming love to the world, to our next door neighbours, in our workplaces, in our families, on our streets, in our communities. If fasting doesn't do that, then what are we doing? So that's the point of that quote. Fasting is supposed to make us more missionary disciples, and it's that kind of tool, and that's often missed when you read on fasting. So I wanted to have a whole chapter on that. That's supposed to send us out in mission to impact the world.
Thank you. Stay tuned to the Christian Book Blurb show. We've been speaking with Bishop Matthew Porter all about the art of fasting, and we'll be back chatting a bit more with him straight after these, so stay tuned.
If you enjoy listening to this podcast, you can help keep it on the web. All you've got to do is buy me a coffee. Head over to buymeacoffee.com/Matt McChlery to make a donation. There is a link in this episode's show notes. So go on, buy me a coffee today and help this podcast to keep supporting Christian books and authors.
Welcome back to the Christian Book Blurb show, where I have been chatting before the break with Bishop Matthew Porter all about his book, The Art of Fasting, Becoming a More Prayerful Person. Now, this side of the break, Matthew, we like to get to know the author a little bit better. From your title, you're obviously a bishop. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, I've been a follower of Jesus for quite a few years. That's the most important thing to know about me. But I'm also a leader in God's church, and I've been in local church ministry as an Anglican parish priest for 27 years. And in the last 2 or 3 years, I've been a bishop. So I'm one of 3 Anglican bishops in the Diocese of Manchester. So Greater Manchester is about 2.2 million people live over here. And I'm one of the bishops there. And I look after quite a lot of the Anglican churches here and their leaders. And I also have a few briefs across the diocese, particularly looking after church planting, starting new churches and revitalising old churches. And that's a great honour to be a bishop.
Great. Being a bishop, does it mean you can only move diagonally when you got... For those chess players out there, you might appreciate that one.
Yeah, I'm not a great chess player actually, but some of my kids are. But I've got a lot to learn about chess. They say it's a mark of intelligence, isn't it? Being a good chess player. So.
Yeah. And I could see behind you there's a sign saying Old Trafford.
Yes.
So is
that
sort of
that?
just a place name, or is that more to do with football?
Oh yeah, I've been a Man U fan for many years, and they sometimes need much prayer. But yes, I've been a Manchester United fan for quite a long time. Through
Season
not just the
ticket
glory
holder?
days. Unfortunately, not. I wish I was. So I don't get to see him very often. Mainly watching TV these days. But I'm a big Man U fan. Yeah, and it's good to have some interest outside my job. My job is great, but it's very time consuming. So I enjoy watching football and sports and spending time with my family. I'm married to Sam. We've got 5 grown-up sons. I've just become a grandfather, which is a new stage in life. So a little grandson. So I love spending time with them, getting outdoors, perhaps walking in the hills, and just enjoying the wonders of creation.
Do they all support your passion for Manchester United, or do you have some rival teams in there?
Yeah, 2 of them do. We lived for a while in Sheffield, so my second son Joel, he's a big Sheffield United fan, which is good, so yeah, so a number of them support Man U.
And do you have a particular favorite kind of food, or it might be sort of a cuisine style or something like that? If you go out for an evening, what would be your ideal place to go?
Yeah, well, in the daytime, I'm a northerner at heart, really. My favourite snack is a bacon sandwich.
I was going to think Greg's sausage roll, but maybe not. Okay, bacon sandwich.
Well, that's not bad, but a bacon sandwich with ketchup goes down very well. But going out in the evening, I mean, all sorts of different things. Sometimes just a simple pizza, but maybe Chinese or Indian. We're very flexible, really.
Yeah. Oh, good. You mentioned walking. Do you like going just sort of a short walk of an evening, or is this like serious walking? Like, we got to do the coastal path and it's going to take 12 days.
Yeah, we're not kind of big hill walkers, but where we live on the western edge of Bolton here, I can be on the West Pennine Moors in 10 minutes and have maybe an hour's walk and get out onto the hills, and it's beautiful. Occasionally we do a longer walk, but it's good just to get outside, isn't it, and enjoy the world. Yeah. And we love it. We have not got a big garden, but we enjoy gardening and growing around veg a bit, and so just getting outside. The world that God has created is an amazing world, I think, and I love to find out more about it and to read about some of those things. I do a lot of reading. The wonder of trees and the seasons. It's a fantastic world we live in.
Really good. Tea or coffee? We were mentioning coffee earlier on. Was that more your lean go-to?
Yeah. So first thing in the morning, I'll drink a cup of Earl Grey coffee. But my drink of choice is a flat white. And I enjoy that. We've got one thing we do have as a great gift to me is a lovely Sage coffee machine, and I can make myself a very nice flat white. And as people come around, I like to give them a good coffee. I'm a bit of a coffee snob, so.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's good. I enjoy a cup of coffee as well. Yeah, no, it's great. Chocolates or sweets? I was chatting to an American the other day, and they're like, sweets? What are sweets? I had to say, candy. But anyway, you know what sweets are. Chocolate or sweets, or neither?
Yeah, I'd go for something more savoury. I'm more of a pork pie guy.
Aha, pork pie.
Yeah,
and do you like lots of jelly in it, or more meat?
Yeah, more meat. But this time of year, cause we're recording this towards Christmas time, I bought a pork pie yesterday that had a lovely top with cranberries on top. Really for Christmas.
Ooh, that sounds gorgeous.
So it's interesting having this conversation, when we're talking about fasting, which is fine, because it's good to fast, but it's also good to feast.
Very, very good. Very good. So A slightly more serious question. What
Sure.
is the Holy Spirit doing in your life or putting on your heart at the moment that you feel you can share with our listeners today?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think the older I get, I have a greater passion for evangelism, for not just wanting to tell people about Jesus, but wanting to see them respond. And we're in a very interesting cultural moment, aren't we? Where there's lots of signs of fresh interest in faith across the different age groups, but particularly amongst young adults. And we see a little bit of that here in Manchester. So I'm praying for more of that. What I don't want us to do is just think, well, God's just doing it, so we don't have to do anything. It seems like God is doing something, and often when I speak to people who are in church for the first time, they may have been reading the Bible for 3 months or 6 months beforehand, or perhaps God's come to them in a dream in the person of Christ, and they feel like they need to come to church. So God is clearly at work, outside of the church, which is great. But what if we stepped up our evangelism and worked with Him, and really did well at inviting people to come to church, or to come to an Alpha course, or to find out more about faith, or begin to pray? If we work together, I think we could see a great awakening in our day. So I love to encourage people to think about following Jesus. One of my roles in the Church of England, as well as being a bishop in Manchester, one of my national roles is I head up something called the College of Archbishops Evangelists. And that's to look after those who have a particular ministry of evangelism in the church. And that's a great honour to lead that body. I'm also trying to increasingly turn it into a coaching, mentoring body, so that those evangelists see their role not just as about telling people about Jesus, but their role is to raise up others. So if we can raise up more each year, who also gifted at calling people to faith, that we could see great transformation in our nation.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Now, you've got 2 other books out in this series, because this book, The Art of Fasting, is part of a series. You've also The Art of. They all start with The Art of. What can you tell us about the other books?
Yeah, so I try and write. I don't always make it. I try and write a book a year if I can. I feel a call to be an author. It's not just something I want to do to kind of make a name for myself or make some money. I feel like if I don't do this, I'm being disobedient. And I tend to write in the area of discipleship. I'm in the middle of writing this series of 6 books on discipleship habits. So the thinking behind that is particularly comes from people like Thomas Aquinas. He said that if we want to develop good virtues in our lives, we need to develop good habits, because habits produce virtues. So the first book in the series was The Art of Giving, becoming a more generous person. How do we develop this? How do we develop generosity in our life? The answer is by living a life of giving again and again and again, becoming disciplined in giving. The second book is The Art of Journaling, how to become a more reflective person. So we want to see this virtue of being reflective. Journaling is one way. It really helps us become more reflective about life and where we're going and what God's doing. Fasting is the third one. The fourth one I've written is with the publishers. It's coming out next year. It'll be The Art of Reading, how to become a wiser person. And then there'll be a couple more that will come out after that as well in the series.
Oh, that sounds very interesting. The Art of Reading. Oh, I like that, especially in a Christian Book Blurb show. Yeah, no, great. That's wonderful.
Yeah, many people have never thought how they can read better. Some people struggle with reading. I did when I was younger. I'm not an expert on it, but I've learned a few things about how to get more out of reading. And many people never even thought about that. And we live in a world where people's attention spans are getting shorter because of digital media. And so how can we encourage people to really be more attentive in their readings? That's what the book's all about. In the hope that we become wiser. And that's the background to the book.
Thank you. Oh, really good. Also fascinating stuff, things that are already available and also things coming up soon, which I always like a sort of sneaky peek as to what's coming up soon. Yeah. So that's great. Thank you for that. Where can we find you? Are you on social media, or more importantly, where can listeners buy your books?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Matthew Potter UK. I do have one or two online places people can check things out. So my books you can particularly find at matthewporter.uk. That's a website that particularly says something about the books that I've written. matthewporter.uk. I've also been writing a couple of blogs. One in the area of discipleship, one in the area of leadership, which I amalgamated together a year or two ago, and that's now called matthewporter.blog. And I don't write in there that often, but every couple of months or so, I write something in there. This time of year, I write a book list. Here's 10 books in the area of leadership you might want to check out. Here's 10 books in the area of discipleship you might want to check out. So I've been a blogger for quite a long time. But if people are interested in buying the books, you can find it in any Christian bookstore. You can go online to places like Eden, Amazon, places like that. Or your local bookstore should be able to find it.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you, Matthew. It's been great chatting with you today, all about the art of fasting. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be with you, Matt. Thank you.
And thank you for listening to this episode of the Christian Book Blurb. I hope that you have been blessed and that this book has helped you with your discipleship journey. Now, don't forget, you can listen to another Christian author on the show very soon, because the Christian Book Blurb comes out on the 1st and the 15th of every month. So it won't be long before I'm back again chatting with another Christian author all about their books, their life, and their faith. So join me then. Thanks very much. Goodbye. Thanks for listening to Christian Book Blurb with your host, Matt McChlery. Do give it a like, give it a share, and let your friends know all about it. We do hope to see you again soon on another Christian Book Blurb.